To see you, sir.
Good to see you, Joe.
What's happening? How you doing? Book number 8, huh?
Book number 8, yeah.
Who would have known? There's so many books to be written on mushrooms.
Well, this is state-of-the-art taxonomy. Psilocybin mushrooms are natural habitat. It covers 60 species all over the world. But it also shows not only historical use, which people are surprised. They've been used in India, in Europe, in South Africa. A new species was just found, Psilocybin maluti. But the Basotho and Lesotho and province have been using it obviously for hundreds of years. We know this because they have songs. So it's really interesting when indigenous people are using psilocybin mushrooms and scientists, quote, discover them and give them a Latin binomial. But the psilocybin mushroom revolution is happening all over the world right now. I never expected it to be this big. And the RAND report came out this past year. 3% of Americans tripped on psilocybin in 2023.
It's only 3?
3%. That's 8 million. I know. Well, I would agree with you because how many people would admit it, right?
Right.
Probably underreporting, not
for
overreporting.
sure. Yeah, for sure.
So it seems to be, I think, a revolution for the freedom of consciousness. And it's crossing all political boundaries, all religious boundaries.
Well, it's happening here in Texas for sure because of the Ibogaine initiative and what's happening with Governor Rick Perry, who was former Republican governor of Texas, who was all in on this.
He's a great guy. I've talked to him backstage a few times, and he's the type of person that I really admire because even though we may have political differences or different cultural backgrounds, we're joined together with a common purpose of trying to help people.
Yeah, well, he's not ideologically captured. Like, he realized that he was wrong, and then his position on this was based on ignorance. So he educated himself and completely turned around, did a 180, and now is an advocate. And it's helped a lot of people. It's tremendous benefit to veterans and people with PTSD and coming back from the war, and it's one of the only things that's been shown to really get these people straight.
That and psilocybin, and my heart really goes out, and I'm sort of a little left of center, so my friends will be surprised, but my heart goes out to law enforcement. Can you imagine stopping a car on a stormy night at 2 a.m?
Right.
And the window comes down, and you have 2 seconds to make a decision.
Yeah.
You do that hundreds of times.
Mm-hmm.
The likelihood of having one mistake is very high, and having one very bad day define your life for the rest of your life is not right.
No.
Because then if you can't resolve those issues as a soldier, as a law enforcement, as a doctor who makes a mistake, if you can't get through that turmoil, that stress,
right,
the anger that then can emanate out from your anger at yourself to other people, then this is what psilocybin and Ibogaine and other psychedelics, I think, really do. They help people forgive themselves and become better people. And once you forgive yourself and become a better person, then everyone is excited about the fact that you've changed.
And imagine the world that we could be living in if this experience was available to so many of the people that are committing crimes. So many of these people who have never had any kind of a psychedelic experience have never really confronted their own reality in that way. How many of them would change their ways? I would imagine a great deal.
You bring up a very important point that I've been thinking about a lot. We talk about using psychedelics and psilocybin and other substances for treating people who have trauma, mental illness, addiction issues. But what about the near normals? All of us are somewhat on the spectrum, and we go back and forth depending on daily, monthly, yearly activities, events, etc. But what about prevention?
Yeah.
If the return on investment is to reduce addiction and crime and all the other collateral damage that's associated with it, then it would save hundreds of billions of dollars. Hundreds of billions of dollars.
Yeah.
Psilocybin should be made free, I think, as a citizen's right to have access, and the government should pay for it. It would massively reduce our national debt. It would make our better society, but that's not going to happen, right? That's a dream.
Well, I don't know if that's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen tomorrow. I think we're on a path. If you look at where we stand with marijuana, for instance, like look at Las Vegas is a great example. Because I remember in the 90s and when we would go to Las Vegas for the UFC I guess actually it was in the 2000s, it was highly illegal. And, I'd remember the stories from the 70s where people were locked up for their entire lives for, like an ounce of marijuana in Vegas. They had zero tolerance for it. And I always wondered what that was about, whether that was an anti-hippie thing or whether it was in response to the alcohol lobby. Vegas obviously sells a lot of alcohol, and anything that would cut back on their profits. We talked about this the other day. The studies showed that amongst young people, alcohol consumption is down significantly. Isn't it down by like 25%? Which, what's that?
It's down. I just don't know the number.
Which, by the way, a great thing. That's a good thing, but it's not a good thing for profits. And so, but my point is that how many states now have cannabis as completely legal? I think it's like 19.
Yeah, it's more than a dozen for sure.
I think it's somewhere around then. And then you have medical use, which is in many, many more states. It's just a matter of time before the people in the federal government realize this is a losing battle.
Indeed, and think about the guilt that those law enforcement officers must feel, and certainly they must feel, I would hope so, that they know they put somebody in prison for 30 years for an ounce of marijuana when it's now legal in those states.
Right.
How do they reconcile that?
How do they? Yeah, well, I mean, PTSD amongst law enforcement is something that's very rarely discussed. We talk about it a lot with soldiers, but one of my friends who was a former Austin PD told me that you see more in your line of duty in a police department than more death, more terrible, terrible things than he ever did when he was in combat. And it's like every day. Every day you're dealing with shootouts. Every day you're dealing with stabbings. Every day you're dealing with horrific crimes. Yeah, and it's just your brain is just overrun with this.
And with firefighters, they're oftentimes the first responders or they're first. My partner's a medical doctor in Canada, but she used to be a firefighter. And they oftentimes, the policemen out show up for 20 minutes and they're there. And the things they witness, things that no one should ever witness.
Right.
But this is where it's so important that we come together as a society. Because I really believe that 98% of people are good and 2% of people are assholes. And I think the assholes can become good people if they have a psychedelic experience. I really think there's progress right now. So much of the media and clickbait journalism, they amplify the extraordinary and things that get eyeballs and attention. But more and more, I think they become more, have greater wisdom about how they're being manipulated by the media.
Right.
People come together and, that's why I like mushroom hunting. Mushroom hunting brings people together. You go out hunting, you have this eureka experience, you don't talk politics, you're excited about the species that you hope to find, and you find ones you don't. But they become like friends after a while. When you find a chanterelle, you find a shaggy mane, you find a psilocybin mushroom. They're that chance encounter, that eureka experience, and sharing it, and then eating the mushrooms, whether edible or otherwise. It brings a community of interest together. It's just a really fun thing to do. And there's something I want to mention, Joe, that's really important. I have been to a lot of conferences. I just came back from the Psychedelic Science Conference in Denver. Our friend Rick Doblin, 8,500 people there. But what I really find an extraordinary way of taking iPhones and Droids, and all these kids are just addicted to their phones, right? They're not going out in nature. So there is called nature deficit syndrome. It's actually affecting people. But there is an app that I'm just in love with called iNaturalist. It was created by a guy named Scott. He just gave a TED Talk that was released yesterday. iNaturalist, you can take a phone and you can go out and you can look at a flower, a frog, a mineral, a mushroom. You photograph it. You upload it into the cloud of iNaturalist, and they have all these experts, amateurs, trying to tell you what it is. It's a great little debate going back and forth. No, you're right. No, you're right. And then when it hits research grade, it's when a group of experts come together and says, yep, you have Coprinus comatus. Yep, you have Boletus edulis. They agree on identification, but it has fueled the scientific community with all sorts of these citizen scientists finding new species.
Oh, wow.
And it brings people into nature, it gets kids excited, and then you can go to iNaturalist right now, and you can look around your house or this place to see the reports of birds and mushrooms and things. I just went on the eye naturalist yesterday, and Psilocybe cubensis, the golden tops, grow around Austin. Who knew? You know, because they've been reported. Now, you have zones of privacy, so you don't have to tell them exactly where the mushroom is. And that's probably not a good thing to do if it's a psilocybin mushroom, but you can make a peripheral zone of anonymity. It could be within 2 miles, 5 miles, 10 miles, you know. And that way you can do the report. But some of them have high specificity with lat longs within a few inches. But it's so exciting in the field of biology, in mineralogy and ornithology, et cetera, to have all these citizen scientists out there with their phones. And then every year, all over the world now, there's called bio blitzes, where several hundred people literally come together. They'll go into a park. They have all their iPhones and Droids. And they photograph everything, and they upload it to iNaturalist to look at species diversity. This has revolutionized the field of biology. I think it revolutionizes bringing children and young people back into nature. And you build a community. You're not talking about politics. You're talking about nature. And what did you find? And holy moly, I never knew there's a blue mushroom or something like that. So it's inspiring to see the kids get so excited about this, and adults. And so this is, you know,
That's very cool.
Yeah, very
How
cool.
many new species get discovered?
Oh, thousands. Literally
Every year?
Thousands every year now.
Really?
Thousands and thousands. There's 223 known species of psilocybin mushrooms, and about,
Wow.
I'd say 10 of them in the past 2 years has come from citizen scientists, quote-unquote amateurs who found it, who uploaded it to iNaturalist. And
So if they find a new species, like how do they determine if it's a completely new species? How do they determine that it's psilocybin? How do they determine where it's from?
Excellent question. The psilocybin species localized in the genus Psilocybe, which has the most psilocybin species, we just know from genetic associations that either in the clade, the group that has psilocybin species, and the DNA analysis shows that they fit right into this cluster, then we have high confidence. But if a mushroom has gills, you know, and it bruises bluish and has purple-brown spores, those three things need to be true, then 95% probability is a psilocybin mushroom. What species it is becomes more debatable. But psilocybin mushrooms are very hard to find, with the exception of the golden top. And there's another one called Pinula cyanescens. They're grow in pastures. They're easier to find. But most of these psilocybin mushrooms are hidden in the landscape.
How so?
Well, I just had a 70-year-old man write me from Vermont, and he has found Psilocybe cerulipes. And he wrote a classic letter to me that many people have written. I have looked for these mushrooms for years. I couldn't find them. And then I found a few, and I looked around, and they were everywhere. They're hiding in plain sight. And so now he knows with Psilocybe cerulipes in Vermont, he knows it's just, I can't believe how obvious they are to me and how unobvious they were to me before.